Tosin Abasi, the famous 8-string guitar player for one of my favorite instrumental prog metal bands, Animals as Leaders, recently made a post on Facebook. They're street photos and the caption reads, "Some recent shots on the Leica Q3 28mm." That's it. No story, no explanation, no context. Just, here are some photos. Also, by the way, I shoot with a $6,000 camera. Now look, I may be coming off as some kind of full-on gear hater, but stay with me. This isn't about dragging this guy. It's more about what this kind of post says about how we treat creativity and how it easily gets wrapped in weird flexing. I'll start by saying I get it. I'm a camera nerd myself, and when you get a new piece of gear, especially something shiny and expensive, you want to show it off a little. It's exciting. You finally get the thing that you've been saving up for, and you want to share it with people to show them, hey, you're part of the club. Maybe you join a Reddit community based on that camera or a Facebook group based on that camera. I've done some of these things in the past, like when I would get a new lens. I would take a photo, share it online. Hey, I took this photo with my new 50mm. Nobody asked, but I told them anyway. So I'm not sitting here pretending I'm above all of this. It's not a purity test. But the thing that got me about Tosin's post is that it didn't feel like it was about the photos. It was about the camera, because Leica cameras are really expensive. I was thinking, are we sharing our purchases or are we sharing art? What's going on here? Let's talk about Leica cameras for a second. It's one of those cameras where it's not about photography, it's really about your identity. They're beautifully made, iconic, have amazing optics, but they're also absurdly expensive. Leica sells a camera that is $9,400 that only shoots in black and white, no colors. And that's for the camera alone. The lens is going to cost another $4,500. And because they're so expensive, they're seen as status symbols. It's the difference between wearing a hoodie because you love hoodies and wearing a hoodie because it says Balenciaga in huge font on the front. The Facebook post by Tosin feels like the latter. Hey, here's a photo, but more importantly, here's what I used to take these photos, wink wink. But am I being too harsh about it? Let's look at the photos. They weren't bad by any means, but they weren't very memorable. They look like your standard, I just got a camera and I want to do street photography kind of photos. They feel more like taking snapshots of what you're seeing on the street. There are two that I feel are a bit more artistic. One of them has beautiful lighting to it, but they still kind of feel like snapshots in my humble, not so humble opinion. They're black and white, no strong emotion, no composition that made me stop and think. Honestly, if you told me that these photos were taken on a phone with a black and white filter, I'd believe you, which is exactly my point. The camera doesn't make the images special. When you look at a photo, you can't tell what camera was used to take that photo, and no one who has looked at famous photos or well-known ones has ever thought, gee, I wonder what camera they were using. But that's fine. Not every photo has to be deep. But when you put it in the caption of your Facebook post and you're name dropping a $6,000 camera and who knows how much for a lens, people are gonna expect something. The reason why this whole thing is sticking out with me is not because of this one guitarist. I am making an example about him, but I wanted to open up a deeper discussion. In all honesty, he was just excited to share. But it is a good example of how we've kind of lost the plot when it comes to sharing creative work. We've started to put the tools above the art, the brand above the story. Instead of here's what I made and why I made it, we get here's what I made it with. And that shift, even when it's unintentional, pulls us away from what actually makes art meaningful. The way it makes you feel, the story it tells, how it can change perception, how it can create empathy within us. Think about it. When you see a beautiful house, do you try to get in touch with the contractor and ask them what brand of drill they used and what drill bit brand they use to build parts of the house? Nobody knows and nobody cares. It's about how the house makes you feel. And to put the cherry on top of this whole situation, a reply to Tosin's post was made by Misha Mansour, the guitarist of Periphery. He says, "Amazing, not helping with my Leica gas, haha. Gas standing for gear acquisition syndrome. It's the condition where you convince yourself that buying one more piece of expensive gear will finally unlock your full creative potential." But spoiler alert, doesn't work like that. The comment by Misha was honest and funny, but also a little sad, because that's what the conversation turned into. Not about the art, not the process, but the gear. Quick side story, I've actually run into Misha Mansour at, of all places, Whole Foods. I used to live in the Washington, D.C. area, and Misha Mansour also lived in that same exact area. I went grocery shopping one day. I bumped into him. I said, "Hey, love the music, love the tracks, love everything that you do." And he just gave me a fist bump, and that was it. He seemed cool. I've seen Periphery live. I've seen Animals as Leaders live. Their bands are amazing. The music's amazing. Incredible live shows. Back to the topic at hand. What I would have loved is if the post said something like, "Shot these while walking around downtown. I noticed how the shadows hit the wall and waited for someone to walk by. Tried to get that rhythm between motion and stillness." You know, something as beautiful as the music that Tosin Abasi makes in Animals as Leaders, which, by the way, is an instrumental band. They don't even use words. Some glimpse into the mind behind the photo, some intention, some curiosity. I feel that would have inspired people. That would have made it feel like art. But just saying Leica Q3 28mm, that's like cooking an amazing meal and saying, "Pretty good, right? I used all clad pans." Yeah, that's cool, but I mean, that doesn't make any difference to the food that I'm eating right now. Look, I'm not anti-Leica, I'm not anti-nice gear. Tools can be exciting, they can spark ideas, they can make the process smoother. I play guitar, as you can see. When I buy a new guitar, it inspires me a ton. But when the tool becomes the main character, something's off about that. And when famous people with big platforms start leading with brand names instead of ideas, it sends the message that you need expensive stuff to be taken seriously. And that is fundamentally untrue. Some of the best photos I've ever seen were taken on beat up cameras with duct tape on the side. Some were taken on phones. Some are taken on cameras that aren't even made anymore. But the photos stuck with me because they had soul. And that's what I gotta say about that. Thanks for listening to my little rant. What do you think? If you've ever felt that you can't make good art because you don't have the best gear, please know that's not true. Constraints breed creativity. Use what you have, focus on the story. And if you're someone who does have the best gear, maybe just remember to lead with your vision, not your receipts. At the end of the day, 99.9% of people do not care what camera you use. They care about what you see and what you have to say. What do you think about all this? Should we talk a little less about gear and more about storytelling? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Do you think I have a good or a bad take? Tell me in the comments. Let's have a conversation about this. Anyways, thanks for listening. Now go make something cool, or go to Whole Foods in the Washington, D.C. area. You may run into Misha Mansour.